Hey everyone, welcome back to the Startup Sense podcast. This is your host, Jonah Lupton. Thank you for joining us today. We have another great episode for you. Today on the phone, we have Amanda Steinberg. She is the founder of a company called DailyWorth. They are an online publication, blogging site geared towards women to help women make better financial decisions. She started the company out of a self-need. She also launched Worth FM, which is a private investment management company, or an RIA. Not just geared towards women, so geared towards men and women, launched recently. And then she's also a author. So earlier this year, she came out with a book called Worth It, Your Life, Your Money, Your Terms. We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's welcome Amanda. Amanda, how are you today?
I'm so good, Jonah. Thanks for having me. Gosh, I'm kind of exhausted listening to all I'm doing these days.
You're a busy person. Where do you focus most of your time?
Right now, I focus on really wanting to help all of the leaders I've brought in to build my organizations, because obviously I can't do all this by myself. And as we know, people are everything. So I spend most of my time cultivating the incredible talent we've managed to surround ourselves with.
Let's talk about each one of these three things. So Daily Worth, and then Worth FM, and then the book. And then we'll talk about kind of what motivates you and, what you've learned as an entrepreneur and, all that good stuff. So tell us about Daily Worth first.
Absolutely. So I launched Daily Worth because I was in desperate need of financial advice. However, I was trying to apply everything I'd found out in the universe to my life, and it wasn't working. So I figured, hey, how about I write about it on the internet, and maybe I'll then figure it out.
Okay.
And fortunately, it's grown to over 1 million subscribers and became really the first major bridge between financial services companies and women, because what I discovered 8 years ago was that most of financial media is read by men.
This is about 2008 or 2009 when you started it?
2009, exactly.
Okay. And it was really just yourself publishing your own story and your own, advice at that point?
I was a software programmer, and I knew that I didn't know anything about money. Funny, I started a business in a subject I knew very little about. So I actually found a journalist down the street who was already a finance journalist, literally a neighbor, and I gave her 2% of the company for 6 months to write all of our content for free while I focused on building up the newsletter, the technology side of it, and the business side of it.
Okay. So how did you guys grow, past that? I mean, so how long, you said she stayed on for 6 months, how did you bring on more content writers after that? And then how did you grow the audience to what it is today, over 1 million people?
Yeah, so fortunately, because of my engineering background, I knew how to build everything myself and how to build audience. It's as much science as it is art form. And so what I did was I used about $25,000 in profit from my web engineering company at the time, in order to fund the first year of operations. And then really it was about, I studied all of the companies that were building very large email subscriber bases. At the time, that was Daily Candy, Thrillist, and IdealByte. IdealByte was a smaller newsletter in the green living space. And the most important thing I did was I stalked strategically all of the founders of those businesses until I got the founder of IdealByte, who had just sold to Disney for $20 million, to be my mentor. Granted, I had to pay her a lot of money, but it was worth it because she basically kicked my butt up and down and told me exactly what to do in order to how to be successful.
What was some of the advice that she gave you?
First of all, she pointed me to a woman named Hillary Fetter, who became our head of marketing for 7 years. And Hillary is a growth hacker, which is a term in technology, which is how do you use different technical tactics to grow subscriber lists. And Hillary just, she'd done it. She'd gotten the IdealByte up to 500,000 subscribers. And it's all about how you set up the landing page, how you create the value proposition, how you drive traffic through both organic SEO as well as paid opportunities, and then measure the success rate that you have in terms of getting people to actually give you their email address. Because when they let you into their coveted inbox, that is the most precious place you can be.
Completely agree with that. What were some of the growth hacks that worked the best for Daily Worth?
It was really for us because at the time we had a revenue model that was based on the advertising of financial services companies like H&R Block and ING Direct which is now Capital One, began spending with us early on. we were able to justify the expense of spending $1 per subscriber because we ended up making $30 per subscriber as a result of the advertising market at the time. That would not be true today.
Right. Okay.
And so we were able to find high quality networks, publishing networks, where they would strike deals with other blogs that were like mom blogs or women entrepreneur blogs who had like the exact audience that we wanted. And we were able to set a price where we would pay just for those who signed up. And it's a very efficient way of marketing.
But like you said, it's changed a lot over the last 8 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed. Everything's changed, as is always the case with technology. Mostly that the product we sold at the time, which were called dedicated emails, you could get $200 CPMs. And really, most, especially in finance, has become about performance marketing, not about brand advertising.
So what is the revenue model for DailyWorth today?
The revenue model for DailyWorth today is mostly online learning. We have a series of classes that we offer. We have another one coming out soon called Money Clarity, where what we know is that women come to us for really 3 reasons. The first reason is they're just feeling overwhelmed around money, just the way I was 8 years ago, and they don't want to be told to plan or to budget or to set goals, all the things they've been told before. They want a fresh perspective on how to feel like they are in control of their money. So that's Money Clarity. And then we also we're building our first investing class right now. Not sure when it will be ready. And then we also have an affiliated company where you can set up a savings and investment account. And even though that's a separate revenue model from DailyWorth, it's part of the same holding company now.
It is amazing how many people just don't have an understanding of financial products and investments. I mean, with the Snapchat IPO recently, I've had a dozen people email me or message me and say, "What's an IPO?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you not know that? But I mean, because I came out of the financial world, maybe I just take it for granted.
Well, where else would they learn it? I
Right,
mean, our
right.
parents
You don't learn it in school.
right. Our parents had their retirement was kind of more handled back then. You stayed at one job and you didn't really think about your asset allocation. It was all, I mean, a lot of people are not in great positions as a result of that, but there's really nowhere where people were supposed to learn it. And when it is explained, it's explained with this horrible jargon that makes it even worse.
Right, agreed. So your online learning, is that like workshops or classes? Is it a one-time thing or is it a series of
It's a self-directed course called Money
Okay.
Clarity, and it is 4 weeks long. It is 10 assignments, but you join a Facebook group, and you can talk to other participants in the class. And it's you can either be part of the flow or you can do it at your own pace. We make it, everyone's busy and has different needs.
Cool.
So.
Now let's talk about Worth FM. So when did you decide that you wanted to launch your own RIA or registered investment advisor?
I decided that I wanted to do it about 3 years ago, specifically because we were selling advertising to large brokerages and to other fintech companies and startups that were offering basic investment accounts. And we found that because women have been socialized differently than men around money, that none of the existing offers out there made sense to her. And she's educated, high earning, that definitely it should make sense to her. So I realized that there was a massive market opportunity, and my desire to help women in particular, though anyone is welcome to join our platforms, anyone who feels disenfranchised really around the current system and who wants things to be transparent and simple and educational, not confusing. It was too big of an opportunity to ignore.
So 3 years ago, you decided that you wanted to launch it. How long did it actually take to launch? Because I mean, certainly the regulations in the investment business and getting all the licenses and whatnot it's no joke. I mean, they make you jump through some hoops for good reason.
Yeah. So your question was how long did it take?
Yeah, to put it all together.
It really took 2 years to put it all together. You're right, because it is a highly regulated business and there's a lot of laws and licenses that you need for good reason. We needed to make sure that we picked the right custodian. So we're a registered investment advisor. We're not a broker dealer or a bank, which means your money actually lives with TD Ameritrade, and making sure that we control the whole user experience. So all of that, both from a technical standpoint as well as from a regulatory standpoint, takes a long time to get right.
And how many people do you have working on that right now? How many employees does Worth FM have?
It has 4 right now.
Cool. and they're out there looking for new clients, or how are you guys generating clients for the business?
We're really focused. There's a lot of organic growth through a lot of the media I've been doing around my book, as well as DailyWorth. So it's a beautiful thing where we don't have to market Worth FM a lot. It grows as a result of all the other things that we're doing, and that was really why I built it, because I realized that I had nowhere to send them that they wanted to go for this sort of thing. So we're really focused on making DailyWorth a place where anyone feels comfortable when they decide, I should get a better handle on my money. And then our job is to be able to create individualized experiences, no matter where you are in your financial journey, and whether or not Worth FM is right for you or not is inconsequential. It's really for a segment of the market. So it's really about making sure that our online learning experiences and DailyWorth is there to serve as many as possible.
This is Jonah Lupton, founder of the Lupton Group and host of the Startup Sense podcast. Are you struggling to find the right tech team to build your company's website or mobile app? Maybe you've developed a product but need help with your go-to-market strategy, including branding and marketing. Well, stop worrying, because my team at the Lupton Group can assist you with all of those needs. We specialize in helping entrepreneurs and startups of all sizes launch and grow their businesses. For a free consultation, you can email me at jonahlupton@gmail.com or visit our website at luptongroup.co.
Any idea what percentage of the women that come through the online learning classes turn into clients for Worth FM? Because I would think that, investing is very intimidating until you understand it, and then it becomes kind of fun and exciting. So I would think that it's a good transition, but do you have any numbers to back that up?
It's relevant to about 30%.
Okay.
And by relevance, I mean that about half of folks don't have investable assets. They may have a 401k, but otherwise they've got to deal with debt. I've been there, done that many times myself. And so, they're just not ready for that type of investing. And then for other folks, they're happy at Vanguard or Fidelity, wherever they are, and they're not, or with their financial advisor, and they're not looking for something new, but they did want a deeper understanding of what was going on. And then for that remaining 30%, it's, they're very unhappy with where they are, or they want to get started and don't know how, or they have all these rollovers. And so we're the right opportunity for them.
Because when I left the investment business back in 2011, a lot of the big brokerage firms were kind of forcing the brokers to push out any clients under $250,000. So a lot of those people feel like they have nowhere to go.
And that is exactly the business that we are in, precisely.
Okay. Good. It's a perfect little niche. Not even little. I mean, there's
it's
millions
not
of those
little.
people
It's
out
20
there.
million women. I mean, it's so enormous that I laugh, that the entire industry seems to ignore her.
Right. The tens of thousands of brokers out there are going after the 5% of wealth, and forgetting about everyone else. Okay, let's talk about the book. So being an author is what? I mean, was this like a lifelong dream, or just something?
No, it was a lifelong avoidance, actually. It got to the point where I finally had something that needed to go in a book. It was no longer, after 8 years, I figured out everything that was wrong with financial advice. And then I reconstructed it in a way that I had proven by teaching the online courses and giving lots of workshops at conferences was finally having the impact I wanted to see, which was, I even had a woman come up to me last November in tears saying, this is the first time financial advice ever made sense to me. And that to me is just like the most moving thing. So I cracked the nut on what I was looking for 8 years ago, and it was time to put it in a book.
So let's break down the book. And maybe this isn't fair, because I'm sure you want people to go out there and buy it and read it and consume all of it. But what are your top 3 lessons from the book that you can share right now with the audience?
The first lesson is that, if the financial industry feels like not for you, you're not alone. The financial industry talks a lot about goals and financial plans. And what I've found is that only resonates with about 30% of women, and I'm sure men as well. The other 70% have a blend of motivators or interests that don't necessarily reflect well in the structure of a goal. And if you want to find out what those are for you, you can actually go and take an assessment called Money Type, which is available at www.moneytype.me. So the first thing is that you can be successful with money exactly the way you are. You don't have to change your personality. You don't have to develop more discipline or willpower or suddenly become miraculously good at budgeting. There's all sorts of ways to be successful with money as long as you know what your sabotage patterns are and adjust for them. And that's what Money Type does. The second one is really understanding the dynamics of what it means to build net worth. And by building net worth, I mean, what are your long-term assets so that if you don't want to work until you die, how are you building equity for yourself? And there's three ways to build equity primarily. The first is to invest for your retirement, in your 401k or an IRA or a SEP IRA. That's, a stock market based investment typically. And that's a lower risk, lower cost way of building security for your future. The second way is to own a home. Homes are not always investments. Homes can become massive liabilities if you're not careful. They're more expensive to set as a root. There's the closing costs, there's the maintenance, there's the interest on your mortgage. But over time, a house, especially if you're really firm in your community, can be an awesome investment. And then the third type of investment is starting a business. Starting a business is oftentimes perceived as the fastest way to generate the most wealth for yourself. And it is, however, it's also the highest risk. And just like other investments, it can also has just as much risk of sending you into debt as it does into affluence. So the second core piece of the book is really understanding which routes you're building so that you're not trying to build all three at once, or that you've picked one that suits your mentality best. And then the third lesson of the book is really about wings, which is how is it you generate income? How do you use credit? How do you build up cash savings? Not just so that you can live the life that you want, but so that you can also feed and grow those roots.
It's funny because when you mentioned that, building wealth, the fast way to build wealth is by being a business owner. That's one of the reasons I left the investment business, because a lot of the clients that I was managing money for, I realized that they were business owners. That's how they made their money.
Yeah.
And and I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of that through Worth FM. Is some of your best clients are people that are business owners, entrepreneurs. So what's some of the advice that you've learned over the last, or some of the lessons you've learned over the last 8 years that you can share with us about your own entrepreneurial journey? I mean, you got into this 8 years ago, just in terms, hoping to blog about your experiences and probably help some people along the way. And now it's turned into a thriving business with multiple organizations. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you've learned a lot and you've made some mistakes and you've had some dark days, right?
Oh, I've had more dark days than bright days. That's entrepreneurship. And if they don't tell you that, they're lying. So I'd already been a business owner since I was 21 years old. I've always been a business owner, but I was in a software engineering company, not financial services. And that was different because I was selling services for my time, which meant that, even though revenue would grow into the millions, so would our expenses, which is fine in a services model business if you know that's what you're signing up for. With DailyWorth, it was the first time I was selling a product, which initially was advertising and then became online classes and investment management. It's been interesting. It's really about, especially as you age, when you're 24, you can handle an enormous amount of risk. When you're in your late 30s, the way I am now, you have to, and have children or family, you have to manage that risk with income and your ability to create other forms of security for yourself. And just make sure that, you're setting yourself up for success in spite of the enormous amount of risk that you're taking.
So what were some of those dark days? We talked a little bit about this on the pre-call, and one of the reasons I started this podcast is to try to educate people so they can make the decision for themselves as to whether or not being an entrepreneur is right. What are some of the bad
Sure.
days that you had? Because I've had
So
my
I'll
own.
tell you
I've had a lot of
about
them.
February 2014. February 2014, we had just raised another couple $1 million in venture capital. And what happens when you raise venture capital is that you have to grow really, really fast and spend that money quickly. The problem is that you're spending, you're hiring, you're doing all these things to produce results. Sometimes those results pan out, sometimes they don't, but you're running out of money again. So you have to raise more money. It's a vicious cycle.
Right.
So what happened to me in February 2014 was we had two dynamics. We knew that we were going to need to raise more money. And we also had about $500,000 in advertising revenue pipeline that we hadn't closed yet. And in that, I remember it was like February 7th, one of the worst days of my life. My kids had been home from school about 14 days due to snowstorms. I don't know if you remember the snowstorms of 2014.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And as a result, all of my fundraising meetings just kept getting canceled for the last 2-3 months. And I could not keep a meeting. So my entire fundraising pipeline was falling apart. And then our head of sales, who was really the liaison between that entire sales pipeline, got poached by a big magazine and quit and gave me like 4 days notice. So my pipeline and my venture capital and what seemed like my business, I didn't think, I literally fell to the floor in the fetal position and was sure that there was no way in hell I was going to get out of that one.
So how did you get out of it? That's a good next question.
You know, I practiced what I preached. I had built up a substantive savings account, was able to go off salary. Sadly, I had to let go of a lot of employees. My board of directors was intent on selling our business, which was very sad for me. I knew I had about 6 weeks where I had to go to investment banker meetings and figure out who we were going to get acquired by. And it was not going to be pretty. It was not going to be like an acquisition that I would fund my kids' college from. And then, this is the mania of an entrepreneur. I went to sleep. I did this last night too, actually. I still do this to this day. I went to sleep one night. And by the way, as an entrepreneur, I usually let myself cry for 2 hours or 2 days, depending on how bad it is. And then you kind of just have to get over it. And then I went to sleep one night. It was probably 2 days later. And I dreamed for 8 hours an entirely new business model. And that business model at the time enabled us to get off of corporate advertising and start selling subscriptions to financial advisors and other types of financial professionals who I knew wanted to reach our audience but couldn't afford our advertising. And so I was able to create, and I made about $25,000 in 6 weeks to start, and it started to grow, and I was able to reverse the board's decision to sell the company.
Awesome. That was very smart of you. So
I still have post-traumatic stress disorder thinking about it.
Sure. Oh, no doubt. And then you were able to hire some of the people back. Have you guys raised money since then?
Yeah, we've raised probably $4 million since then.
Okay. So you'd raised a few million before that, and then.
Yeah, we've raised $9 million total. So I think it was probably 4 and now 5. It's
that $9 million.
It's been 8 years. So sometimes I lose track.
Is that $9 million split between DailyWorth and Worth FM?
Yes, it's 6 million DailyWorth, 3 million Worth FM.
Okay,
and they are now one holding company. So it's just all venture capital that we raise and angel capital goes in through the holding company, and they own both entities.
Okay, cool. Who are some of the investors that have stuck with you through those bad times and are still involved with the company now?
Oh, there's so many. I don't even know where to begin. Eric Schmidt from Tomorrow Ventures. He's not involved personally, but his fund has been incredible for us.
And that's the former chairman of Google, right? Or CEO
Correct.
chairman? Yep.
Yes. That was a fun one for me as a, Philadelphia suburban mom to get into our sphere. There is a VC fund called Committed Capital that's been really strategic for us. They were formerly the heads of Domini Social Investments, which is a pioneer in the impact investing space. And that's what's important to us right now, is that we have some serious heavyweights in the financial services space because more and more aspects of this company are as much about investment services as the education and media that we provide.
So what are some of your goals for 2017 and beyond with both DailyWorth and Worth FM?
Right now, if you have a retirement account, you go and you purchase a portfolio and you put money into that portfolio. But that typically is disconnected from other aspects of your financial life. And so we're looking to be much more of an ecosystem, not just a single solution. So that, especially since money is such an emotional subject that I think is widely ignored by financial services, is how do we serve all facets of one's financial journey so that it doesn't feel so overwhelming and confusing along the way as life changes.
Does that mean you're going to get into insurance or mortgages or other types of financial products that some people may not understand?
I doubt, although you never know, I doubt that we would actually get into creating those products, but especially on the Worth FM side, we're what's called a fiduciary, which means we're required by law to work in your best interest, is how do we integrate other best of breed products most relevant to you into what we do, so that if you need those other supplementary services that you can come to us for them. We haven't created that yet, but that is the intent. That's one of our many intentions.
Now, when you started Worth FM, did you guys start at zero AUM and then you've built it up
Yes.
from there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you think you'll do any acquisitions, acquire any smaller RIAs and roll them in?
We haven't really talked about that yet. As I mentioned, our focus is really on education right now. And fortunately, because of that service and the number of women we support there, that we have the privilege of going where the market goes and not needing, really listening to our clients and building in response to them, as opposed to working more aggressively like some of our competitors might be.
So when you look back over the last 8 years to what you've built and the people you've hired, employed, and then the women that you've helped along the way, what does it mean to you?
It's a dream come true. You really can live your dream as long as you can suffer through the dark days, which are numerous. It's a privilege to be able to get up and do what I do every day. And I wouldn't want it any other way. And that's really what gets me through those times, is because I can't imagine doing anything else.
And what were you doing 9 years ago before you started this?
I was running a software engineering company that built
right. Okay.
fundraising platforms for nonprofits.
Oh, cool. Okay. Whatever happened to that business? Did you sell it?
I shut it down. I shut it down after I ran it for the 2 years that I when I started DailyWorth, I didn't take a salary until year 3. So it paid my bills for those first 2 years, as well as the bills of DailyWorth.
What advice do you have for another entrepreneur that is about to start raising capital for their business?
I would say really check out entrepreneurs like Marie Forleo, Ramit Sethi, Noah Kagan. There's a lot of ways to build scalable businesses that you're passionate about where you don't have to take venture capital. Just understand how your life is going to change and how the dynamics of what you do is going to change once you do, and make sure that you've exhausted the other means of generating revenue, because it's just easier on you and your life if you can avoid venture capital. I recommend it.
So if you could go back 6, 7, 8 years, would you not try to raise money? Would you just try to bootstrap it?
It's super hard to say. I mean, how can you regret anything, right? I mean, the thing that's different about my business versus most is I really saw that, based on readerships of Yahoo Finance and MarketWatch, that half the population is not getting financial advice that resonates with them. So venture capital makes sense when you literally have millions and millions of target customers. Most businesses don't have that type of market opportunity. So in that regard, venture capital does make sense for us. However, if I was to go back then, what I know now, I probably would have been able to do it without venture capital.
You think you would have started with the current business model, the online learning, rather than corporate sponsors?
Possibly. It's so hard to know. You really can't. You can't.
Right.
You can't. It's impossible to know. I mean, maybe it was because of the prestige of the venture capital that we developed the brand profile that we did, or you know what I mean. You just have no idea.
Yeah, when you're an
entrepreneur,
entrepreneur, 2020 hindsight will eat you up, because there's always decisions that you can go back and doubt or wish you had done differently. But every one of them got you to where you are now. So, as we close this, wrap this interview up, what else would you like to share with us that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Just that I commend all of you who are entrepreneurs, and just be aware of what the risks are, and what the lifestyle implications are, because it can really wreak havoc on your life. And there's a lot of ways to be fulfilled entrepreneurially when you're not putting your entire personal finances at risk. So it's easy to get sold on the story of freedom and endless wealth. It's another thing to get yourself in deep in a business. It's just know what you're getting yourself into and make sure that it's the right path for you.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, Amanda. Really, really appreciate it. There are millions of people out there that do not understand how to manage money or how to invest their liquid assets, I guess, to build net worth. And I'm glad that you're out there educating them. So keep up the great work, and feel free to come back in time and give us some updates.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. Really enjoyed being here with you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.